Well, we're only 4 days away from the start of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season, and it's shaping up to be a pretty active one by all of the sort of large-scale environmental factors. Before we dive into some of that logic, let's just look back on 2023 real quick. An above normal season in terms of tropical storm counts, with 20 storms in total across the basin, but near normal in terms of other metrics such as hurricanes, as a couple of competing environmental factors, El Nino in the Pacific and a really warm Atlantic Ocean, kind of went to battle with each other throughout much of the season. In the Atlantic, we actually had no names retired for the first time since 2014, although there were still impactful storms such as Idalia. Although two storm names were retired in the East Pacific, Dora and Category 5 Otis, which hit Acapulco, Mexico after a round of rapid intensification. Let's start to look ahead now to the 2024 season, and I'll kind of step strategically in between these two graphics here, which look pretty similar at first glance. But this summer, the National Hurricane Center is debuting an experimental update to their cone of uncertainty, this kind of measure of kind of probability of where the center of a tropical cyclone might track. So to my left here, you're going to be looking at an old version of, or the current version of the cone for Hurricane Ian in 2022. And on the other side of the screen here, what I'm going to show as I step off to the side is the one little subtle change that we have here, and it's this inland extension of tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings. You're seeing that blue and that red and that yellow start to extend a little bit more inland than what you see in the kind of current operational version of the cone. This is designed to warn inland communities more readily of these potential tropical cyclone hazards, including rain and damaging winds. Let's look ahead to 2024 now, and I think a really great way to introduce this is by looking at the sea surface temperatures, a simple yet effective proxy for how active a season might be. And one big difference from what we had last year is what's going on in the East Pacific. We're really interested in this ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation, this kind of back and forth pattern of sea surface temperatures in the Pacific Ocean. Last year, the East Pacific was quite warm. And the atmospheric circulation response to that warming is to basically drive stronger upper-level winds over the Atlantic. That higher wind shear, as we call it, is what generally tends to weaken or disrupt the formation and intensification of these storms, so that's a good thing for us. Now, as we start to approach the 2024 season, we're seeing a bit of a breakdown in that warmth. We're seeing some cool anomalies start to emerge, some of these blue colors here. A transition to a La Nina by the peak of the season between August and October is expected, with a 77% chance of that being issued by the NOAA Climate Prediction Center within the last month or so. In the Atlantic, we're cooking, for lack of a better term here, and a lot of that warmth is actually situated in the tropical parts of the basin. We've had other years like 2020, for example, where much of that warmth, that most anomalous warmth, was situated over the subtropical latitudes, which can contribute to more storms over that part of the basin, but these generally tend to be a little bit more harmless and drift off to sea. Down here in the so-called main development region, the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico, these are the areas where we tend to see our most long-lived and potentially strongest storms ultimately developing here, and these are the ones to kind of keep an eye out and keep an eye on in the long term here. So another way to visualize this is by looking at this sort of time series plot throughout the year here of sea surface temperature averaged across the North Atlantic. And the orange line that you can see up to the top was 2023, which was a record. It was warmer across the Atlantic than pretty much any other year in this historical NOAA data set. The black line is the year-to-date evolution of this average water temperature for 2024. So we're looking at just a subtle change here, but even warmer than that previous record set last year. So in terms of the large-scale ingredients, everything is kind of shaping up for an above-normal season, and that's what a lot of these agencies like Colorado State University and NOAA and these other university forecasting groups are kind of locked in on. So you kind of see these forecasts with the number of named storms, hurricanes, major hurricanes, this integrated metric called ACE, or accumulated cyclone energy, that takes into account the strength and the duration of a tropical cyclone. Many of these agencies at least forecast a chance of us running or exhausting our 21 name list for the 2024 season, and pretty much above normal statistics throughout are projected here. Zeroing in on NOAA specifically, again, the kind of median of the 17 to 25 named storm range would exhaust the list at 21. And notably, this is also the highest forecast that NOAA has issued for ACE since the 2010 preseason forecast, with an overall 85% chance of an above normal season. Well, now, we've kind of discussed some of these a little bit, intimidating factors here, but I think there's some nuance and some uncertainty we should probably discuss with the 2024 season. One thing to note here is, well, we've discussed the confidence that the large-scale environment is more favorable for storms than normal based on these metrics like sea surface temperature. But also something to kind of keep in mind here, especially in recent years as we've seen our numbers of tropical storms spike, is that our ability to collect data and find some of these even shorter, weaker-lived storms, for example, is better than ever. And there's also some areas we need to acknowledge, again, a little bit of uncertainty, because every individual disturbance, once we get into July and we're looking at individual waves, has its own unique environment to deal with. There's other subseasonal ebbs and flows, factors like equatorial waves that can help to boost a disturbance to become a tropical cyclone. And I can't tell you on August 4th if there's going to be a landfall of a storm in Louisiana or anything along those lines. It's just kind of beyond what we're able to predict this time. We need to kind of focus our energy on these larger scale factors in the meantime here, and use that as a way to kind of help people get ready. So for the 2024 name list, we haven't started yet, which is actually a pretty welcome change of pace compared to recent years, but Alberto will be the first one on the list here. Some new names include Francine replacing Florence and Milton replacing Michael from 2018. Your forecast summary is coming up next.